Welcome to Policy RX with the Rock Doc. I'm Eric Murdoch, coming to you from the doctor's office in Estes Park, Colorado. Today, we are speaking to Kitty Calhoun. Kitty is what I think of when I think of a lifer climber. She started climbing in the late 70s, ice climbing in Vermont, but in the 80s and 90s, pursued alpine exploits all over the world, North America, South America, throughout the Himalaya, including a sense of incredible 8,000-meter peaks, too many to name. Kitty's also been a business owner, a mentor, a mother, a leader, an activist, a professional climber for more than 40 years. So we are so pleased and honored to have you, Kitty, here at Policy RX.
Thank you, Eric. I'm honored to be here, excited to talk to you about some things.
So recently, you wrote a piece in Climbing Magazine, an op-ed. It's called Indian Creek Climbers. It's not about rules, it's about respect. And I feel like in some ways, it might summarize some of the lessons you've learned climbing the mountains for so many decades and your experiences meeting with other cultures and being in other environments. You wrote this in the op-ed, and I want you to respond to it. You said, "As a climber, I've spent my life drawn to big landscapes, seeking the kind of solitude and transcendence only the mountains can offer. But I've learned, slowly, humbly, that true respect for a place begins with listening to those who know it best."
Well, when I tell stories of my climbing exploits, it's all about the climb and how hard it was and what we had to overcome, the extremes of temperatures or run out scary avalanche danger, going without food. But I've realized early on that it's not this summit that counts. It's sort of the journey. That sounds cliche-ish, but the thing is that if you're on an expedition, you're with people, the same people for weeks on end, together under stress, and your true personality comes out. And I think that you can't be proud of an achievement. Say you summited, but at the expense of what? How did you treat the others around you? And most important is um how you treat others and how you behave. And that sort of comes from the heart. And we you under stress, people see things in you that you wish they didn't. Because nobody's perfect, right? But the whole focus, though, is to make the summit, but doing it with integrity. And at the same time, it's not just your teammates, but when you're working with the outfitter and go and work through logistics, and then you have a cook at base camp, and it's how you treat the porters, it's how you treat the staff, it's the whole deal. And that makes it exciting because there's so much diversity in the different cultures that I've gotten to visit, and it can and it's challenging. There's kind of a mystery, like, as much as I'd like to understand others' cultures, I'll never truly.
So when you were thinking about writing this op-ed, it was obviously a response to an article about some exploits, base jumping in Bears Ears. What inspired you to put your thoughts down into this op-ed, and what inspired you to collaborate with Angelo Baca to respond to the article about base jumping in Bears Ears?
Well, there's two sides. One side is that I could feel the pain, that I knew the leaders at Bears Ears Intertribal Coalition. I had spent some time with them and heard their stories, and so I knew that they were feeling pain from this story, and I knew that Angelo could best represent, because I heard him speak. I first heard him speak on the Access Fund webinar after the Sunshine Wall event. And Angelo, I believe, he can both speak his truth and show mercy at the same time, which is something that I think we all need, because we all have a lot to learn. And then, I understand. So you can understand, but neither agree nor disagree. But I think I understand in some way. When I read Brett's piece, I feel maybe a frustration that she tried, she reached out, she wrote a letter to Bears Ears Tribal Coalition and she didn't get a response. What she loves to do is under threat. And so what, you know, it's a feeling of, sometimes I feel like desperation, when you feel like aren't being heard. Your point of view isn't being heard. So I wanted the Native American view to be represented. And also I want to then move forward so that we can figure out how to work together through this. So I've been studying a lot of other people and organizations that do work in this area in terms of moving forward. And what I'd like to say is that, this is going on in America, especially right now in politics in general, just with the extreme polarization. And we can use simple tools, and it starts with listening with the intent to understand rather than how you're going to answer back or be defensive. I think people want to collaborate, so it's just how do we get there? And it's actually a learning experience, and it's soul uplifting rather than soul sucking, which I find polarization to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think your op-ed doesn't have the tone of condemnation or anger. The action that I'd like you to explain sort of what you heard from the Intertribal Coalition, but essentially, just to back up, someone went out and pursued a bunch of base jumping adventures in Bears Ears just before the Bears Ears management plan took effect. And the Bears Ears management plan is pretty strict on base jumping and is going to prohibit base jumping in Bears Ears. And some folks from the base jumping community are really upset about it. And some people wanted to get their jumps in before the record of decision it officially is formalized. And it sounds like, and you told me that you heard from your friends and your partners and friends in the Native American community that saddened them. And it seemed like that was the impetus for your collaboration with Angelo, and your op-ed was to sort of address this idea, and as you're saying right now, in a way that's not polarizing, that's not divisive. Was it hard to find that tone? And can you sort of describe your main points on why this was so troublesome to you, so confusing and concerning to you, and what motivated you to put pen to paper finally?
So when I was at the joint event with some of us there, well, actually, I'd like to say Andrea from the Access Fund was there, and I'm sorry that I didn't recognize that in the article. And also people from the BLM were there, as well as Tommy Caldwell and Missy and I from Patagonia, and board members from the Bears Ears Intertribal Coalition. And we went climbing, and then we went down at Indian Creek, and then we came down and we had a talk circle. And I can't tell those stories, but what I can say is when I sat down and even when I came to the event, I thought, okay, I'm not going to talk. My job is to listen. It's not to talk. But then when I heard them go around the circle and tell their story from an Indigenous point of view, their perspectives, then I realized my story is important too, because they may have misconceptions of what the experience means to a climber. They may have this perception of it's just a performance, right? To spread on social media or whatever, or to check off in I did this book, right? But it's not that. It's to most of us, it's an experience that's life changing. And I thought that it was important for them to hear that, because maybe they hadn't heard that before. So that's what I shared in that circle. And I do feel like there hasn't been enough exchange. I'd like to see more exchanges, like panels, webinars. Even I think what Angelo wrote was super enlightening, I would think, for somebody. I mean, we're not. How do we know what they believe, what they think, unless we have the opportunity to hear them speak and tell stories, or read what they've written? We just don't have enough. I'd like to have more opportunity and more sharing to understand, because we're stronger together and we do have common values, like I said before.
Do you think, I think the climbing community, the work is certainly not done, but we've put a lot of work into trying to create these venues where we can talk about these things. And I think that eventually led to the establishment of Bears Ears, the respect, the mutual respect at Bears Ears, and perhaps the base jumping community hasn't gotten there yet. What are your thoughts on that? Or what are your thoughts on
Yeah.
how this issue came to be in the first place?
Right. Well, let me put it back to you, Eric, because I know the Access Fund has been working with Indigenous people. I don't know, when did it start for you? I mean, for Indian Creek, there are other areas, Oak Flat, which congratulations on your recent success. The injunction, it's not over, but that was major success. So talk about the work that the Access Fund, what you've done, what's worked, what didn't work, how long it's taken in terms of working with Indigenous groups.
I mean, the Access Fund has a long history with Indigenous groups, and we've made some serious mistakes, Cave Rock being one of the most traumatic ones. But I think I think the turning point, as we spoke with people like Angelo and many other people in the Native American community, the turning point was really Bears Ears. I mean, we've had various discussions over climbing access, but Bears Ears was an issue that went way beyond just rock climbing. It was much more meaningful for a variety of different reasons. And in 2014, at least for me personally, going to an event where someone provided some airplanes and flew around climbers and Native American leaders, medicine men, elders around, but we were flown over Bears Ears, and we all looked down on Bears Ears. It was, we sort of took different flights and matched up the people differently and made sure everyone could speak with each other and provide different perspectives. And that was the beginning of just the discourse, just connection and understanding what the place meant, and what the goals were, and the history and the importance. Yeah, so that overflight of Bears Ears with tribal elders was the moment, I think, when Access Fund recognized the importance of some of the values that you really articulate well in this recent op-ed, and some of the things that you're thinking about a lot. I know as you're mentoring some Indigenous people, as you are thinking about these things, as you are doing your best to try to talk with the climbing community about these issues. But we're so far from having a true understanding of what this relationship means and how we should engage, with these landscapes. We're just like what you said, we're in this learning mode. And the thing that's been the most difficult for me is to do what you said, is to listen and listen hard without having to say anything. So that's this ongoing exploration into this relationship with other people who share these landscapes. So that's how I see Access Fund's journey, but it's, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, my experience is that, first of all, I mean, I could say a lot about mentorship, but one of the things that I learned right away was, because I was involved with the mentorship program that Scarpa started. But I quickly learned that I'm the one as a mentor doing the most learning. Learning how to be a good ally, and it's not easy. And I think that what keeps me going in terms of this learning how to be a good ally is when I'm encouraged, and when I'm shown mercy. I'll have to say that some people I've met are not ready to forgive, and so you can't move forward until they are. Anyway, I also want to say talk about the importance of the work, though, even though it's hard. And I'm not talking about just being an ally, but learning to work through polarization and why that's important. And I think it's important because you're stronger when you're around people who have differences of opinion. I think about it in a marriage. Unfortunately, your kids might have differences of opinion. Your business partners might have differences of opinion. Common partners. But anyway, the thing is that, and then certainly in families, politics is divided families. Unfortunately, we shouldn't let that happen because I feel like differences of opinion. This one woman from Braver Angels wrote this book. I never thought of it that way. So it's otherwise, if we're just surrounded by the choir, we're in our bubble, then we're never challenged, and maybe we're not always right. Like I always wanted to be able to convince somebody I was right, and then I realized, no, that actually be kind of a bully. And what if I was wrong? So I don't want to be a bully and I don't want to be wrong, but anyway, I think that we're stronger when we absorb all the input that's out there. It's amazing.
What are your goals moving forward? You're involved in mentoring. You're willing to sort of write op-eds and talk to people and represent Patagonia by sharing these ideas. What are your goals for the future, and how do you think these ideas are going to evolve and become more part of your climbing experience and your life?
I mean, I'd like to just talk about my life. We can, there's abundance. We just need to share, and we need to listen to people. When it's the greatest thing in the world is to feel like you're understood, right? I mean, it's one of the greatest things in the world, and I think that people want to be understood, and all you have to do is listen and not pass judgment, but just listen, ask questions. We have more, we share more in common than not. And we can get so much more done, and life can be so much more fun if we're sort of in it together rather than in it against each other. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fun learning new things and moving forward together. It's not just about me alone, what I did, what we did together as a team.
Well, I'm grateful that you're part of the climbing community and mentoring and sharing these ideas. It's amazing in some ways that you're a cutting edge alpinist and climber, professional climber, but you're also thinking critically about how to change the collective consciousness of our society and how to try to make things better. I can tell that you're thinking about it a lot. I know that also because I've spoken to you a lot in the past.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank you for all that.
Yeah, I just wanted to read something that Lynn Nessifer wrote recently. He's a Native American climber that started Natives Outdoors. And he wrote along these same lines: notice when you're holding on to a lens so tightly that it blocks out new information. We don't need this mindset to win arguments, but to live well together. And I think that goes along with just what we've been talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, Len's a great friend of Access Fund and
Yeah.
a wise dude.
Yes.
So
Yes, he
thanks
is.
to Len for that. Shout
Yeah.
out to Len. We could be chatting for a long time about these things, but we're going to wrap it up. I just want to know kind of what are your plans? You got any climbing
Mm.
plans in the immediate future? Any goals, or are you just going to keep picking away at?
Oh, well, I'm enjoying pushing myself. So I've been mixing it up. Like I have this running program where I'm running 5 days a week, and it gives you the program where you have to stay in this heart rate zone for this long, this long, and this long. And I've been making improvements. And so that's really cool. And then I've been climbing, mostly just mini traction, but trying to up the ante. And I've been pushing on little creepy holes. And I realized like to make these reaches, sometimes you have to really push down, and so you gotta have a really strong triceps to be able to push through all the way through, right? It's just like, whoa, man. But I go out early in the morning and there's nobody else around, just me and the birds and the cliffs, and then the sun's just coming up and it's kind of beautiful. So that's what I've been doing, in where it's not too hot, and weightlifting, then they'll be changing to the seasons, and then I'll get back to crack climbing, and then I'll get back, and then ice climbing, mixed climbing, dry tooling, backcountry skiing if there's powder. So, just sort of doing it all, trying to do it all as hard as I can for as long as I can.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's get out this year.
Yeah, let's do.
Thank you so much for being on PolicyRx. It's always great chatting with you.
Yeah,
Take
keep
care,
up
everyone.
the good work.
Thanks, Kitty.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.